It what you do? Okay. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I am in very beautiful Asheville, North Carolina, and it's really a thrill to present to the Hudson Valley because these are the two most beautiful places I have lived. And it's really fitting for this week's Torah portion because it's about what does it take for humans and the tribe of Israelites, the children of humanity, in our Jewish story, are really getting close to crossing over into the promise, the human promise, the promise that was made to Abraham, and of course that promise extends to all the children of Abraham, not just the Israelites, but our story is focused on the Israelites. Like, what does it take for humanity to get out of the wilderness that we are in, folks, and cross over? And because I have a very political mindset to this Torah and to my life as an activist, I started to think last night: is Torah calling us today to return to what is called in Israel post-Zionism? So that's a little bit of my theme, and I guess in a way that might be a trigger alert here. So this week's Torah portion, named by the rabbis, 1,000 or more years ago, Shelach Lecha, which I'll explain the meaning of that Hebrew expression, begins with the divinity instructing Moses to select a group of leaders from among the people to Shelach Lecha. What does it mean to go out from yourself? Go out to yourself, so that they can enter into this mystical consciousness that is a consciousness that's so strong that it manifests in our very experience of physical and material living, and it's called the Promised Land. What is the meaning of this instruction? Go out from yourself so you can enter into, experience, finally realize the human promise that was made so many generations before to Abraham. And the name of the parsha, right, Shelach Lecha, really brings our minds, if we're Torah students, back to the instruction that Abraham received. So Torah's cluing us in here. Whoa, remember that journey that we were instructed way back in the book of Exodus to go on? It's an inner journey. It's not the land. And we're going to see what happens when all we see is the land and we don't understand that we ourselves have to change in some way. We ourselves have to transform, because where are the people now? They're in the wilderness of Paran. Whose wilderness is that? Hagar's wilderness. That is where Hagar and Ishmael went, and Ishmael himself was destined to become a great nation. So Torah, the rabbis, they're telling us right here, back to Exodus, back to Genesis, back to your beginning. If you want to enter the promised land, you have to begin again. You've taken refuge. These people have taken refuge in the wilderness of Hagar and Ishmael. And that wilderness has been good to them, even though they've been like, right? But that's not the end of the journey. And the end of the journey is to go forward. It's not to make America great again. It's not to go back to what we think of as the good old days of Zionism. It's something new, and it calls upon us to transform. Go out from yourself. Abraham was told back in the book of Genesis, right at the beginning of the Torah, right? Go out to yourself. Leave the idea, the narrow idea you have of who you are. And this is an instruction now to Abraham's progeny who have been enslaved. Go out from this idea that you're a slave. Go out from this idea that the whole world is out to get you. To arrive in the promised land, even just to scout it, right? Just to scout it. You have to leave, we have to leave what we have taken to be ourselves, what we have created as a self, individually and collectively. Like we have to leave, we have to actually exile. We have to exile a fixed, narrow idea of ourselves, of our people. We have to go out from that and begin anew so that we can actually see the promised land. Otherwise, well, that is exactly the otherwise is what happens in this parsha. How this week's story unfolds, what happens when we enter this land and we think the land itself is, that there's no back and forth between us and the land, that the land is just supposed to give, and we take, and we don't have to transform our relationship to wholeness, which is what the divinity is, what the Shekhinah is, right? The wholeness of the formed world. When we forget what this Torah portion is going to unfold, and I'll get to the story in a moment, what it's telling us through story, through this incredible story, colorful story, when we forget what we are meant to be, how we are meant to be in partnership with the land and with the peoples in the land. So I really see this parsha as a celebration of diversity, a wake up. And here's why I see that, okay? So first, as I said, Torah instructs Moses, the divinity instructs Moses to instruct the people to leave behind, Shelach Lecha, leave behind, go out to some new power, capacity in yourself, to leave behind what it is that's going to prevent you from experiencing what the place of promise offers, so that you can come back and rally the people, right? This is the actual opposite is what happens. So Moses sends the leaders from each tribe out from this wilderness of Paran, which is where they went after Sinai. They went to a few different wildernesses, and the people, I think it's 600,000 is the mythical number in Torah, will stay in the wilderness of Paran, hosted in the land that has been inhabited and thriving under the leadership and the consciousness of Hagar and Ishmael, right? That 600,000 people can just wait in Paran, and everything they need is going to be provided for them there, right? And by the way, there's no indication in Torah that the people even realized, oh, our brothers, our cousins, the other people of Abraham are here, and they've been holding the land, and now we're here, and they're not interfering with us. No indication of that. They don't know where they are. And that is why this entire book, which we think of as the book of Numbers or Bamidbar, in the Midbar, in the wilderness, right? We're still in the middle of that. We're not in the Promised Land, and we're not in Egypt, and we're not even fleeing Egypt anymore. We're just in this Midbar. Torah scholar calls this whole book the book of bewilderment, because these people, they're not yet doing the work they need to do so that they can get clear about where they are and what is holding them, what is hosting them, whether it's the manna from the divinity or what they see when they get into the Promised Land. So the scouts who are sent, and they're the leaders of all the different tribes of Israel, set off on their journey to scout the Promised Land. And Torah tells us they reach it, and it's a long journey. And, presumably they're eating off the bounty when they get in there because they're thriving and they have energy to wander through the whole land. I believe they're in the land for 40 days and eating off the bounty. And Torah does tell us of the incredible bounty that they find in the land. It's kind of like the manna. It's given to them for free. They find these grapes from Wadi Eshkol, these grapes growing in the promised land. They're so huge. And this is just 12 scouts, right? I said the 600,000 people, and these numbers are just stand-ins for all kinds of mystical purposes, but we get the proportionality. 12 scouts wandering, and they find that, for example, the land is so fertile that the grapes that they were instructed to carry back to Moses, interesting, I guess Moses was really into grapes, or I don't know what the grapes, well, I do, actually, I did hear a teaching once, but I won't go into that. The grapes were so huge that they found in the promised land that had been instructed to bring back, that they had to carry them out on some huge frame that two of them had to carry to carry the grapes. And the same with the pomegranates and the figs. So they're in this land of plenty where everything is provided and they're safe. There's nothing in their report or in Torah's story of what happens when they get into the promised land that indicates any kind of hostility, threat, violence from any of the other peoples. But what happens while they're wandering through this land and taking this bounty and being provided for over the days that they're in there? What do they see? Well, Torah does tell us that in this promised land of Canaan, that it's inhabited by many other accomplished people and tribes, people who have figured out how to live, first of all, multiple tribes living together in the promised land, right? Did these scouts see that? It doesn't seem like it. We're going to ask ourselves in a moment, why? Why didn't they see what the promised land really is? And then, this incredible bounty of foods that need to be cultivated, right? This isn't like the manna that falls from the sky. These are trees, pomegranates and grapevines, figs. Any of us who have grown any of these or tried to know that this is a partnership between people and the land to produce this kind of bounty, and it's all there. And there's no mention in Torah that there was any kind of strife among the inhabitants of the land or toward the guests. This is a land of cooperation. This is a land of diversity and cooperation. This is a land where whichever people knows how to make grapes the size of however big enormous grapes, is in cooperation with the people who know how to do the other things that are going on there. But, so it's a land, the promised land is a land where cooperation and diversity thrive. And I just want us to take that in for a moment, how relevant that is, how much we know we need this as Jews American Jews in our two countries, right? America and Israel. Cooperation among all the peoples who are there. That is the promised land. But when the scouts returned, the Torah story goes on to tell, they expressed fear. It's a terrible place. It's a land that will devour us. Where did they get this from? Their consciousness, their minds. They haven't yet released the thoughts and the traumatic imprints that have imprisoned them in this narrow place of enslavement where there's no hope, faith, possibility, where, even when you look closely at the Exodus story, the Egyptian people who the the enslaved Israelites were around, there was a lot of kindness toward them and helping them escape. So it actually isn't even accurate to say that in the mythical Egypt where people were enslaved that everybody else hated them. It's the way the story was imprinted in them. And I myself, as a Jew growing up, just in the decade after World War II, I got the message that all the Germans wanted to kill all of us. They all hated us, and the Polish were worse, and the Lithuanians who had massacred my family was the worst of the worst. I grew up with that. And now, folks, I feel so humble because I'm living in America and I'm living freely and I'm living with privilege. And I see the suffering of immigrants and so many people. And the same thing, when I go to Israel and I'm with my beloved friends who, luckily for me, I have Palestinian and Israeli friends. But I see what's going on and I don't know what to do to stop it. So I know it's not because they all hate us, they all want to kill us. No, it's because we don't know what to do. And this is what Torah is saying, right? In your mind, all these other people can defeat you. Why? And how does Torah tell us that this is in our mind and that this is what we have to transform so that we can get to the promised land? Two amazing things that happen in this Torah portion that are our wake-ups. The first one is the scouts come back and they report that everything that they saw is threatening. Why? Because in the minds of the scouts, they were grasshoppers. It's how they saw themselves. They saw themselves as victims. They said, we were grasshoppers in their eyes. And again, praise the beautiful grasshopper. This is just Torah's imagery. It must have been some horrible looking cricket or something. But Torah, it's translated as grasshopper. They saw us as grasshoppers, and indeed we were grasshoppers in our own eyes. Torah is telling us we have got to transform this victimhood that we hold on to, this idea that we are powerless to create a land, to enter into a land that celebrates cooperation and diversity. If not, we come back caught in the belief that I'm only going to be safe if you out there, the other, are destroyed and humiliated. And in our eyes, the land becomes a wasteland of war and violence instead of a promised land. And this is what's happening. This is what has happened in our world. Torah is a prophet, right? The people, and this is Torah's words, they see the land, human nature, as something that devours, instead of seeing that actually the nature of humanity, and this is what Yuval Harari, who's speaking so eloquently now about human evolution and how it's impacting the way Jews and his fellow Israelis in particular are seeing humanity, how wrong it is, seeing it as a threat, seeing it as that the nature is dog eat dog. He's like, no, the reason humans have come into hegemony over all the other mammals is because we know how to cooperate. We know how to cooperate across diverse lines, and we have to completely change our story, just as Torah is telling us here. And so what happened when the scouts return with their fearful report that the land will devour us, we're grasshoppers, it's threatening? All the people immediately went along with it. They feared, they cried, they shouted. These are the words in the Parsha. They railed against Moses and Aaron. They shouted and they said to each other, let us head back to Egypt, or let us die. Let us just die in the wilderness. Well, so what happens now? The divinity heard that, and the divinity said, okay. And in this parsha, the decree comes down from the universe, the cosmos, the interbeing, the God, however you want to look at it. And it says, all of the people who came out of Egypt, that whole generation, except for the 2 who went into the promised land and came back with a positive report, 2 out of 600,000 will turn to carcasses in the desert. Mibar, the name of this book, it's because they're all dead there. They will never make it to the promised land. And knowing that they're at the end, that their carcasses are going to drop in the desert, Torah goes on to say, and you're going to wander with this knowing for 40 years. And your children who will get into the promised land are going to wander with you. So the hope is in the next generation of children who get to see all of their living ancestors, parents, grandparents, dropping one by one. This is what's all in this Torah portion. And so how does Torah kind of suggest, what is it that you need to take into your consciousness so that this doesn't continue to befall every elder generation? Like, that's us, so that we don't drop like carcasses in the midbar, never having reached a state of satisfaction, of plenty and goodness, right? That is there. It is there. Torah reminds us before the end of the Parsha of 2 things. One is that you have to have collective rituals, and Torah goes through a whole bunch of different kinds of collective public rituals that everyone participates in to create a civic society. Like, when we get into that promised land, it's not about laying around doing nothing. It's about celebrating diversity and collectivity together. And there's just a whole bunch of rituals that we do when we enter the promised land and in order to stay in the promised land. And then the last teaching that Torah repeats in 3 different ways at the end of the Parsha is, there shall be one law for you and for the resident stranger. It shall be a law for all times throughout the ages. You and the stranger shall be alike before God. Ah, so beautiful. And how have we strayed so far from this? It's right here in this Torah story. There shall be one law for all of you, you and whoever resides among you. The same ritual and the same rule shall apply. And these are quotes from the English translation of the Torah. The same ritual and the same rule shall apply to you and to the stranger who resides among you. Why? So that everyone is reminded of the shared values with which we can all live and thrive. So this is it is a brutal story. The people never satisfied, just seeing fear, threat, and then condemned to die in the wilderness in front of their children. This fear of diversity, fear of difference. Torah is foreseeing this and ending by reminding us there shall be one law for everyone. And I just want to end by saying that yesterday my brother sent me an article from the Jewish Forward, and I thought, it's exactly what this Torah portion is saying. It is reminding us that Israel's 1948 Declaration of Independence, which never was translated into law, into a constitution, okay? It contains a promise. It says the new country will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. And this is an article that I recommend for people to read. It's a call to return to post-Zionism. It's not the land, it's what we bring in our hearts to meet the land. And what we have to bring in our hearts, Torah is telling us, and the original vision of the U.S., right, and Israel, the original vision is everyone, all humanity. It's to be grounded in human rights. So just finishing, I think, with a prayer that we wake up and that we listen to the scouts who are saying there is a promised land. We can create it. And the way to do it is to see the beauty of the diversity of all the peoples and life that are here now. Thank you.
Amen.